here as we memorialize the war dead of wars present and past. People who are less familiar with the activities of the Smedley Butler Brigade and Veterans for Peace in general know that activists do a variety of things in the interest of peace, both in our community and in the world, and also the inner peace of each other. Our friends and colleagues, family members. So we will begin the program now.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for being here this afternoon on a day that I know is deeply sacred and meaningful for many of you who have lost beloved friends and comrades and family members to war. On a day that should be sacred for all of humanity. Today I think of a colleague of mine, the Reverend Chris Antal. Chris Antal is a United States Army chaplain. He happens to be from the same faith tradition I am, Unitarian Universalist. He decided he was called to be an Army chaplain after 9/11. Though he himself is a pacifist, he thought perhaps it was a way he could serve in some capacity. He was stationed in Afghanistan, and there he became very aware, among other things, of our indiscriminate drone policy, of our indiscriminate killing with drones, not just in obvious places like Iraq and Afghanistan, but also Pakistan and Yemen and Libya and on and on. And although it is terrorists who are targeted theoretically by our drones, we know that many civilians are killed in the process. On Veterans Day in 2012, he wrote a Veterans Day confession, citing the sins, if you will, that all Americans are complicit in our drone policy. And for writing this confessional prayer, which I shared with you on a Veterans Day a few years back, he was in fact discharged from active duty. He was sent from active duty back to the States, and he served there in a small upstate New York town in ministry, but he was still in the reserves. Finally, I think of him this year because just last month he decided he no longer wanted to be officially associated with it, and he in fact formally resigned his commission as an officer in the United States Army. And he wrote this letter to President Obama just last month. Dear Mr. President, I hereby resign my commission as an officer in the United States Army, which continues to claim extra constitutional authority and impunity from international law. I refuse to support this policy of imperial overstretch. He writes, I resign because I refuse to serve as an empire chaplain. I cannot reconcile these policies with my sworn duty to protect and defend America and our constitutional democracy, or my covenantal commitment to the core principles of my religion. These principles include justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, a free and responsible search for truth, and the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Respectfully submitted, Christopher John Antal. It was incredibly brave of Chris, in my opinion, to write this letter. And I, for one, am very proud and more so appreciative that he took that risk.
Speakers, our first speaker is Nicole Waybright. She's a U.S. Navy veteran, and she's going to speak to what Memorial Day means to me. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. My name is Nicole Waybright, and I am a U.S. Navy veteran. I have never spoken publicly on Memorial Day. It was a difficult decision for me to choose to participate in a Memorial Day event. I have many conflicting emotions as I stand here and speak. For decades, I have consciously avoided all tributes and ceremonies related to Memorial Day. I don't doubt these tributes and ceremonies are well-intentioned and heartfelt by those who offer them, but I have found that I can never bring myself to participate in them. I can't even watch them. You might be asking, why would a veteran feel so conflicted over a holiday that is intended to honor veterans? What troubles me is the value system of a popular type of patriotic ideal that is being forced upon us, which becomes especially apparent on a holiday such as Memorial Day. It is a value system based on an insatiable war machine, the war industry, the importance of invasion, and the glorified idea of dying in foreign countries, and stating that these values protect our freedoms. We honor those who have fallen with ceremonies, speeches, and pomp and circumstance, but yet we still keep sending military members as we stand here today overseas without much public critical thought and discussion of the wars we are engaged in. We use perfunctory phrases like protecting our freedom. Why do we have a celebration of Memorial Day and at the same time continue to send our young military members into questionable wars where they may very realistically become the fallen we honor next year on Memorial Day? Our government, the media, and our very culture press upon us the idea that death and sacrifice related to war is necessary. It may be unfortunate, horrific, and devastating, but nevertheless, it is argued, it is necessary. Sacrifice and dying for one's country, being a hero, these are held up as the highest orders of patriotism. Heroes are put in the spotlight, poems are written about this, songs are sung. The themes could traditionally relate the horrors of war, along with the notion that the suffering depicted is necessary and justified for a greater cause. And conversations about the victims of war are sidelined in favor of focusing on continuing the war at all cost. This has been illustrated time and again over the past 15 years that we have been fighting in the Middle East. We are living in a war culture it is painful to accept. We have collectively created a mythos in which the military is exalted to a nearly religious status. The military agenda, with its unique value system, has permeated every aspect of our culture. If you buy a soda at Subway, you can get a cup in camouflage which states support the troops and then Subway profits. You cannot get through a day without hearing that this or that business is actively supporting the troops. The Veterans Administration and services for veterans are non-stop topics at every level of government. Someone is being thanked for their service every time you turn around. We live in a new culture driven by militaristic themes. I wrote a book about my experience in the military, and I would like to read for you a short excerpt from my book, Long Way Out, that illustrates some of my conflicting feelings regarding Memorial Day. It is a true story that happened to me while I was in ROTC. This is the excerpt. I was deeply affected by the account of a World War II veteran who I had met in the grocery store. He was collecting money for wounded veterans. When I approached the older man, wearing his VFW member's cap, to drop a few dollars in his collection jar, I told him of my ROTC scholarship. He told me of his service in Italy during the war, when his unit's young lieutenant commanding officer ordered his enlisted men to remain on board their patrol boat while he jumped off the boat and swam over to some unexploded ordnance. Rather than his enlisted crew be killed, the young officer saved the lives of his men, perishing in the subsequent explosion. The elderly man in the grocery store had wanted to tell someone about the young officer and how he died, and I had been moved by his story. Despite my growing inner conflict over my role in the Navy and the Navy's role in the world, I still was moved by the veterans' account, and I wondered if maybe there were times, such as during World War II, when the reasons for war were more clear. Where was the line between supporting individual troops and supporting the wars in which those troops were fighting? That's the end of my excerpt. I just wanted to say that in literature, in war movies, and even now in memes and Facebook, there's an acknowledgement of the suffering of war, the devastation, the catastrophic nature of it. But where I see it falling short is the questioning and the unexamined patriotism that often comes from that. because how can we criticize a war that's being fought by heroes? So the rhetoric obscures the message and us being able to examine what we're doing as a country. So I want to leave you with one last thought on this Memorial Day. Be courageous enough to ask, is our military involvement moral? Is it ethical? And are our reasons for war on philosophically solid ground? We must not be afraid to question, to be honest, and to have open dialogue. Instead of blindly accepting the values of our war culture, I would ask that we honor all victims of war by engaging in honest reflection about the wars we are fighting. That is how I believe we should honor our fallen brothers and sisters and all victims of war. Thank you.
I would like to thank all of the speakers I've heard so far. I just feel very inspired to keep on keeping on, and I believe we have to become a nation of peace. It would be so wonderful. We must become a nation of peace. This song is called Strangest Dream. It'll help you imagine having become a nation of peace. Last night I had the strangest dream I'd ever dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. I dreamed I saw
speak on Let Us Be the Winds of War No More.
No, the other one. Yeah, that's it.
Too low? There you go.
Good afternoon. I'm happy to see so many people here, and I think today I want to talk a little bit about the ringing of bells, the tolling of bells. One of the deepest human feelings, especially on Memorial Day, is the sound of bells tolling. In 2005, I attended the Hiroshima 60th anniversary commemoration. And at that time, it was a moment of silence at 8:15 a.m. in the morning when the first atomic bomb was dropped upon a mainly civilian population. The ceremony was very solemn. 60,000 people speaking in whispers. An orchestra played a funeral dirge. A mother and her young son rang a peace bell. An hour later, there was a arts festival in Peace Park in Hiroshima. There were bells ringing there, happy bells. There were jazz musicians playing, hip-hop dancers, rock and roll, all kinds of things going on to commemorate this event, the 60th anniversary, and more so to commemorate the thousands of Japanese who threw themselves into the Motoyasu River to escape the heat of the bomb. Little did they know that the river was boiling. I couldn't help thinking as I reflected on the ringing of bells, a poem by John Donne. Perchance, he for whom this bell tolls may be so ill as that he knows not it tolls for him. And perchance I may think myself so much better than I am, as that they who are around me and see my state may have caused it to toll for me. And as one volume, when one man dies, one chapter is not torn out of the book, but it is rewritten, translated into a better language. And every chapter must be so translated, as therefore the bell that rings to a sermon calls not upon the preacher only, but upon the congregation to come. So this bell calls us all. But how much more me, who am brought so near the door by this sickness, this war. No man is an island entire of itself. Any man's death diminishes me, because I'm involved in humankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. This feeling was further brought to me about a year ago when a Japanese woman heard that I was making a film about the Japanese Constitution. The Japanese, incidentally, they love their own Constitution. Anyway, she heard that I was making a film, and she decided to embroider a banner for me. I never met the woman. I have no idea who she was. She sent it with a friend to New York. I met the friend in New York, and she gave me the banner. I take the banner wherever I go, and I let it ring. And it tolls. It tolls the bell for you, for thee. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Sue Serpa, an associate member of our chapter of Veterans for Peace, and she will speak Under God's Blue Sky.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm here to read a poem that my father wrote. He was a B-17 pilot in World War II, flew missions over Germany, and thought he was doing the right thing, and had afterthoughts for many decades after that on the whole war machine. And when he passed away in 2011, I discovered over 4,000 poems. Most of them were devoted to peace, and I'm reading my favorite today. Under God's blue sky, I know I shall lose my life, some 30,000 feet above, some German town, twixt drum and fife. I am not a hawk, nor yet a dove. The same is true of all my mates. We only joined the force to fly. None of us bore any hate for others under God's blue sky. Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing me and when not being part of the program. My name is Virginia Pratt. I'm a former chair of the Boston branch. We have several members of the Boston branch of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom here. We're a 101-year-old women's peace organization. We welcome men as members as well. We have chapters and sections all over the world. The Women's International League for Peace and Freedom began in 1915 as an effort by women, more than 3,000 from over 32 countries, who came together to try to stop World War I from happening. Unfortunately, we still have our mandate. And one of the slogans, regrettably, that has not gone out of vogue or still has relevance, that Wilf can claim, is that it will be a great day when our schools have all the money that they need and the Air Force has to have a bake sale to build a bomber. Thank you.
First class, Kenneth J. Iwanowski, Belchertown, Mass. CW3, Kieran D. Kennedy from Boston, Mass. Sergeant Gregory Anthony Bright, Boston, Massachusetts. Sergeant Marquise R. Porter from Brighton, Mass. Lance Corporal John J. Van Geisen from Bristol, Mass. Corporal Donald E. Fisher II from Brockton, Mass.
Captain Anthony Palermo, Brockton, Mass. Lance Corporal Gregory E. McDonald, U.S. Marine Corps Reserve, Burlington, Mass. Sergeant Alexander H. Fuller, Centerville, Mass. Corporal Andrew Zyberic, U.S. Marine Corps, Chelmsford, Mass.